A beautiful queen with a big secret, why do all the kingdoms want to capture her? In ancient China, during the reign of the Tang dynasty, a baby girl was born who would shake history. The child was named Yang Yuhuan, but the world would later know her as Yang Guifei. From infancy, her beauty stunned people. Her skin was pure white, her eyes sparkling, as if she were hiding a great secret. The village elders said, "This child was born with the aura of a star, destined to be queen." She grew up in a respectable family, full of rules and education. Besides being beautiful, she was also intelligent. From a young age, she was adept at reading scriptures and reciting classical poetry. Furthermore, her singing voice was melodious, making anyone who heard it forget the passage of time. She learned to dance gracefully. Every movement of her body seemed to bewitch those around her. In her teens, her beauty became even more perfect. Her smile was gentle, but her gaze held a firm resolve. People began to whisper, "This beauty will bring glory or ruin." News about Yang Yuhuan began to reach the ears of the courtiers. Not a few rich families and officials wanted to make her his wife. But his heart was more interested in the world of art and the tranquility of life, not just wealth. Behind his gentleness, he has a strong heart and dares to make his own decisions. One day, he was summoned to appear at a noble party. In front of the regal guests, she danced in a sparkling silk gown. The movement was so beautiful, it made all eyes riveted, unable to look away. An official whispered, "This child deserves to enter the emperor's palace." Since that night, his name has become a topic of conversation among the royal elite. Her beauty was said to be equal to the four most beautiful women in Chinese history. Yang Yuhuan began receiving invitations to grand aristocratic parties. Wherever she appeared, everyone seemed to be overwhelmed by her charm. Her beauty wasn't just physical, but also a power that made all bow to her. But behind her smile, she knew her life wouldn't be easy. In her heart, she asked, "Is my destiny one of happiness or suffering?" People around her were jealous, and some even began to harbor envy. Small rumors about her began to circulate, some admiring, some derogatory. But Yang Yuhuan continued to walk gracefully, seemingly unconcerned. Unbeknownst to her, her steps were heading towards the Tang dynasty palace. And there her tragic destiny would begin: love, power, and betrayal. Behind her smile, there's a curse that could shake the entire world. News of Yang Yuhuan's beauty eventually reached Emperor Xuanzong, ruler of the Tang dynasty. The emperor was curious. "Is there really such a beautiful woman in my country?" he asked the courtiers. He ordered that Yang Yuhuan be presented to a palace banquet. When the hall doors opened, all eyes turned. Yang Yuhuan entered gracefully. The emperor fell silent. Time seemed to stop as he gazed upon the girl's face. Their gazes met in an instant. The emperor's heart was shaken. He whispered softly, "She is no ordinary human, she is like a goddess from heaven." Yang Yuhuan bowed politely, but her small smile pierced the emperor's heart deeper than 1,000 arrows. That night, the emperor could not sleep. The image of the girl continued to dance in his mind. A few days later, he summoned Yang Yuhuan personally. In their first conversation, the emperor was struck by the girl's intelligence. She was not only beautiful, but also adept at writing poetry, and her voice was as soft as the melody of a lute. The emperor fell in love, deepening with each passing day. But there was one problem. By then, Yang Yuhuan was already married to a prince, a relative of the emperor's own. Their relationship was forbidden, but feelings could not be stopped so easily. The emperor then hatched a cunning plan. He forced Yang Yuhuan to enter the temple as a nun, pretending to renounce the world. A few months later, the emperor summoned her again. This time not as a prince's wife, but as an imperial concubine. Yang Yuhuan officially entered the palace with a new title, Consort Yang Guifei. The emperor was no longer preoccupied with state affairs. He preferred to spend time with his beloved concubine. The officials began to worry. They whispered, "This is dangerous. The emperor has forgotten his people." But to the emperor, the world now revolved around Yang Guifei. He built beautiful gardens just for the two of them to enjoy themselves. He ordered the royal chefs to create the most delicious dishes just to pamper his concubine. Every time Yang Guifei danced, the emperor forgot about war, taxes, and even the people's famine. The concubine's beauty was like a sweet, paralyzing poison. The emperor even granted Yang Guifei's family great power. They became wealthy and influential. Everyone saw clearly, the palace was now ruled by one woman and her family. Their happiness burned brightly, but beneath it, a wave of hatred began to lurk. And without them realizing it, this love would drag them to the brink of destruction. Kings, warriors, even bounty hunters, all have their eyes on one woman. Days in the palace were filled with laughter and music, but outside the walls, the people began to complain. Taxes rose, crops failed, and the emperor was rarely seen administering the state. The officials shook their heads. It's all because of Yang Guifei, they whispered. Yang Guifei's name became the subject of gossip, not only in the palace but also in the city markets. Some people blamed her beauty for bringing disaster. Behind the scenes, the Yang family grew in power. Her brothers were promoted to generals and high-ranking officials. Corruption became rampant, using Guifei's name to gain profits. Senior officials complained, the palace no longer belongs to the emperor, but to the Yang family. Resentment simmered, political intrigue began to be secretly plotted. In the palace, the other concubines grew jealous. They felt pushed aside by Yang Guifei's beauty. Someone spread slander, saying she used witchcraft to charm the emperor. The rumors spread quickly, making Yang Guifei even more hated. But the emperor didn't care. To him, all the rumors were nothing more than jealousy. Instead, he doted on Guifei even more, further fueling the anger of many. The generals on the border also began to grow restless. The troops were given less attention, while the palace feasts became increasingly lavish. One general, Lushan, harbored both envy and great ambition. He was once close to the emperor, but now felt his position threatened by the Yang family. Slowly, he built up an army and harbored a grudge. In the capital, officials who hated Guifei conspired with the generals. They were plotting something that could shake the Tang dynasty. Meanwhile, the emperor became increasingly lost in love. He summoned musicians to compose a special song for Guifei. Guifei danced gracefully, making the emperor fall in love in front of all the officials. The officials bowed, but deep inside, they harbored anger. That night, a secret meeting took place. Several senior ministers discussed how to get rid of Guifei. As long as she is by the emperor's side, the country will be destroyed, they said. But no one dared to act openly, for the emperor's love was too great. On the other hand, Guifei felt pressured. She realized everyone was staring at her with hatred. In silence, she began to pray frequently at the temple, begging for a change in her fate. But her prayers were never answered. History had already written her life's path. Meanwhile, the emperor grew increasingly blind. He believed his love could conquer all. He rejected all advice, even dismissing officials who dared to criticize Guifei. This only worsened the situation, emboldening Guifei's enemies. Lushan, the ambitious general, began mobilizing troops. He claimed that his actions were to save the Tang dynasty from Guifei's poison. This rumor spread, leading many to sympathize with the rebellion. Guifei heard the news. Her face paled, but she still managed to smile in front of the emperor. Deep in her heart, she knew a great storm was approaching. The emperor tried to reassure her, as long as I live, no one can touch you. But those words sounded fragile, like a powerless prayer. In the palace, tension grew. Soldiers whispered, officials fell silent with suspicion. Some guards even began to doubt their own loyalty. Yang Guifei continued her days, as if everything was fine. She dressed beautifully every day, hiding her anxiety behind a smile. However, deep in her heart, she began to feel the shadow of death. Nightmares came again. She saw herself bound in white cloth, strangled under the moon. She woke in a cold sweat, but dared not tell the emperor. The emperor remained blinded by love, turning a blind eye to all the signs of danger. Day by day, the situation grew more and more precarious. Lushan's army began to move, approaching the capital. The atmosphere in the palace turned tense. The courtiers began to flee. Guifei looked at the emperor, trying to be strong. I will stay by your side, no matter what. The emperor clasped her hands, but his face couldn't hide the fear. The screams of the people rang out outside the palace. Rebellion was imminent. The palace, once filled with music, was now silent, except for the sound of panicked footsteps. The emperor refused to leave Guifei behind, but the pressure grew stronger. Finally, a decision was made. The emperor and Guifei had to leave the capital. In simple clothes, they set off under cover of night, accompanied by the remaining loyal troops. There was no more feasting, no more music. Just a terrified flight, toward an uncertain fate. Those closest to her are the first to stab her in the back. The palace looked majestic at night. A high-ranking official secretly met with an enemy envoy. In a secret room, a map of the palace was opened. The queen's hiding place was recorded. The traitor sold the country's honor for power. Meanwhile, the queen still believed that most of the ministers remained loyal to her. She was unaware of the thorn in her side. In a dark room, a loyal eunuch overheard the plot. His face paled. He realized the queen was in grave danger. The eunuch ran through the deserted palace corridors. His breath was labored, he had to warn the queen before it was too late. In a private room, the queen wrote a final prayer in her notebook. She still hoped for a miracle. Suddenly, the eunuch entered, knelt down, and said in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, there is a traitor in the palace." The queen was shocked, her hands trembling. "Who are they?" she asked. But the eunuch only wept, afraid to mention the great name of the person involved. Outside, the traitor began to mobilize a shadow army. They waited for the signal to storm the queen's chamber. The queen finally realized, it wasn't just external enemies, but the palace's own flesh and blood who wanted her dead. She remembered the faces of the common people she had once helped. The eunuch held the queen's hand, saying, "We can still escape tonight, before they come." But the queen stared out the window. The full moon illuminated her face. "I can't run forever." The shadow army drew closer. Footsteps could be heard in the dark halls of the palace. One of the bedroom doors trembled. Someone was trying to force it open. The eunuch held the door shut with his body. The queen stared at the small sword her father had left her. She knew that tonight, the choice of life and death lay in her hands. The ultimate traitor appeared. He smiled sinisterly. "Tonight, the flower of the palace will wither forever." The queen stood gracefully, though trembling. "You can take my life, but you will never take my love for this country." The door finally burst open. Dozens of shadow soldiers entered. The eunuch fell, his body covered in blood. The queen embraced her loyal, dying eunuch. "Thank you for being with me until the end," she whispered softly. The eunuch smiled one last time, then his eyes closed. The queen now faced the storm of betrayal alone. A soldier approached, raising his sword. But the queen stared at him with authority, making her hands tremble. The queen declared loudly, "I would rather die as a queen than live as a prisoner." In an instant, she drew her small sword and fought back. Though her body was weak, her spirit was blazing. A brief battle broke out. Blood dripped onto the marble floor. The queen remained standing despite her wounds. "You are beautiful, but your beauty is a curse." The queen glared, "True beauty lies in the soul, not the face. You will never understand it." With a single slash, the enemy's sword pierced her shoulder. The queen fell, blood soaking her white robes. She tried to get up, but her body was weak. Yet her eyes still shone, refusing to give up. The traitor approached slowly, as if savoring the queen's suffering. Outside, the people heard screams and the sound of swords, but they couldn't enter the heavily guarded palace. The queen still fought. With her remaining strength, she stabbed one of the soldiers, knocking him down. But the enemy was too numerous. Her body was struck again, falling to the cold floor. Tears flowed from her eyes, not from fear of death, but because she could no longer protect her people. The traitor raised her sword high. This is the end of a beautiful queen who believed too much in the love of her people. But before the sword could strike, a trumpet suddenly sounded from outside the palace. The queen's secret army had arrived. The traitor was shocked. He shouted, "Quickly kill him before help arrives." The queen smiled weakly. Even though her body was near death, she whispered, "Justice always finds a way." The main door of the palace opened. Loyal soldiers burst in, lighting torches, ready to fight. A fierce battle erupted within the palace. Blood, fire, and screams mingled. The queen tried to crawl away, her body weak, but she still wanted to witness the final victory. The traitor tried to escape, but was surrounded by loyal troops. Her face was pale with fear. The queen whispered softly, "Capture him, don't let the evil escape." With that, her eyes began to close. Blood flowed freely, and the night grew silent. She died, but her beauty is eternal, etched in history. Rumors of the queen's death spread quickly throughout the land. The people mourned, but some were relieved that the palace intrigue seemed to have subsided. However, behind the official report, a dark rumor continued to echo. It was said that the queen's spirit never left but wandered the palace corridors. Servants often heard the soft whispers of a woman, as if crying in the middle of the night. The fragrance of jasmine flowers always accompanied the sound. Some soldiers even swore to see the figure of a woman in a white dress standing under the moonlight. Her face was pale, but eerily beautiful, as if still alive. The newly ascended crown prince was haunted by nightmares. In his sleep, he saw his mother standing with bloodshot eyes, staring intently. The dream terrified him. He began ordering rituals to appease her spirit, but to no avail. Outside the palace, the people began to build a legend. That the beautiful queen still guarded the kingdom, albeit in a gruesome manner. Some believed the queen's spirit sought revenge. Some believed she wanted to protect the country from greater destruction. Historians record the event as a great mystery. A tale of love, betrayal, and blood, all intertwined in an unforgettable history. To this day, it is said that in the ruins of that ancient palace, anyone who dares to enter during a full moon will hear a faint whisper. I am the immortal queen. And that's the end of the beautiful queen who was hunted to death, but is her soul truly at peace? Click subscribe now, because there are many more mysteries that will keep you awake tonight.